Schools are key settings for suicide prevention. Teachers, mental health providers, and other school personnel who interact with students can play an important role in keeping them safe. So why should schools address suicide? Well, schools have an obligation to maintain a safe school environment, and that's part of the school's overall mission. So how can schools take action? The best way is to take a comprehensive approach that includes these components. 1, promotes the emotional well-being and connectedness among all students. Secondly, identify students who may be at risk for suicide and assist them in getting help. And lastly, be prepared to respond when a suicide death occurs. A comprehensive school-based suicide prevention program should be based on a number of complementary, multi-factored strategies tailored to the cultural needs of the community. Districts should not attempt to implement all strategies at once. However, strategies should be built on a foundation that responds to the most serious issues faced by students in the school. And that includes a student at high risk of suicide and a death by suicide of a student, which could put other students at risk. According to SAMHSA's toolkit, there are several key components of a strategic approach to suicide prevention in schools. They include protocols for helping students at risk for suicide and protocols for responding to a suicide death, staff education and training, parent education and training, student education, and screening. Now we're going to talk about staff education and training. It's important for school districts to train all school staff annually. This includes all faculty, administrators, office staff, athletic staff, cafeteria, transportation staff, and classroom volunteers. This can save lives. Training should include youth risk and protective factors, warning signs, and crisis response procedures, as well as referrals and post-vention activities. Additional training on youth suicide risk assessment and crisis intervention procedures should be made available to mental health professionals and nurses employed by the school district. Gatekeeper training is important because it teaches adults in the school community to help students at risk of suicide. Any adult can be trained to be a gatekeeper. This training is known to be among the most promising methods of youth suicide prevention and intervention. Gatekeepers are trained to reduce a person's risk by talking with them, keeping a person in imminent risk of suicide safe until additional help can be found, and facilitating referrals, and increases the likelihood that a person at risk will receive professional help. Here are a few recommendations for determining whether providing gatekeeper training for all school staff is the right fit for a district. 1, you want to learn about the gatekeeper training and review other strategies. Consider how gatekeeper training differs from other types of suicide prevention and intervention training, and more specifically, how it operates in a school setting. Secondly, you want to make sure that your school district has the necessary protocols in place. Do you have a crisis response plan in place with crisis response services? Are there mental health screening, assessment, and treatment services available? And do you know how to access them? And are there organizations and agencies that will help those students who are identified at risk for suicide? Thirdly, you want to determine if your school district has the partners needed to successfully implement the training. Do you have leaders and policymakers, representatives of the school district and the community, and representatives of the staff members? The fourth step in the process is to determine if the district has the capacity to support and sustain community education, the training logistics, including the cost and the time, as well as the monitoring and the evaluation of the training. Involving parents and guardians is an important way to ensure that efforts appropriately target the needs of the community and enhance the cultural competency of school-led efforts. Parents, guardians, and other adults in the community who receive suicide prevention education training should understand the prevalence of suicide and suicide attempts among youth, the warning signs of suicide, how to respond when they recognize their child or another child is at risk, and where to turn for help in the community. Now I'm going to talk about student education. Implementing developmentally appropriate student-centered education materials should be integrated into the curriculum of all K through 12 health classes. The content of these age-appropriate materials should include the importance of safe and healthy choices and coping strategies, how to recognize risk factors and warning signs of mental health disorders and suicide in oneself and others, and help-seeking strategies for oneself or others, including how to engage school resources and refer friends for help. There are several different strategies that school districts can use for educating students. Universal strategies include providing information about suicide prevention, including information about protective factors, positive attitudes. These strategies increase students' abilities to recognize if they or their peers are at risk for suicide. And these strategies also encourage students to seek help for themselves or their peers. Skill building programs for groups of individual students or more targeted interventions help at-risk students build their coping, problem solving, and cognitive skills and address problems that can lead to suicide, such as depression and other mental health issues, anger, and drug abuse. Peer-led programs or more targeted interventions teach selected students leadership skills needed to help students at risk and empower selected students so that they can take action to improve the school environment. A few recommendations for school-based suicide prevention screening. Schools should always consult with the screening tool developer or the distributor to assist in estimating the service needs for the anticipated number of positive identifications. Screening should be implemented after the process of referral and follow-up are clearly established. Behavioral health providers should be notified prior to screening to facilitate referral procedures. Scoring or other review of screening results should take place immediately to identify those youth at risk for self-harm. Response protocols should be developed prior to screening so youth suspected of being at imminent risk for suicide and their caregivers receive immediate guidance and referral. And lastly, schools implementing a suicide prevention screening program should have a complete directory of community resources for behavioral health. A model school district policy recognizes that physical and mental health are integral components of student outcomes, both educationally and beyond graduation. It further recognizes that suicide is a leading cause of death among young people and has an ethical responsibility to take a proactive approach in preventing deaths by suicide. A district policy acknowledges that comprehensive suicide prevention policies include prevention, intervention, and postvention components. The SAMHSA Toolkit, as well as the Model School District Policy on Suicide Prevention, are two helpful resources to help school districts develop the two essential protocols. I encourage you to take a look at those resources as you develop and or refine your current school district policies. There is a message of hope. The majority of youth considering suicide show warning signs. This means that we can recognize most crises before they turn into suicide deaths. Nearly everyone who thinks about suicide is ambivalent about ending their life. That they are still alive is proof that some part of them wants to live. Most youth who think about suicide don't die by suicide. And with engaged and prepared schools, even fewer would. Showing that you care, offering help, and connecting youth to help brings hope and prevents suicide.